The sky over New Jersey that morning seemed to crack. Gray clouds swallowed the morning traffic, and the wind blew umbrellas around like toys. The weather report warned of heavy rain and storms, but for Donald Trump, it was just another trip. According to his schedule, he was scheduled to attend a private fundraiser, then meet with a few local business people for lunch. But the storm didn't follow the route, and at that moment, the GPS guidance, the safe route plan, and even the Secret Service were thrown off course. The driver slammed on the brakes. The wipers on the windows were no longer working. Trump looked up. "Where are we?" The guard opened the door. "Mr. President, this looks like a coffee shop. We can wait inside if you want." Trump squinted and looked outside. Warm light seeped through the fogged glass at the door. It read, "Common Grounds Café, open to everyone's stories." Trump shrugged. "Coffee. Storm. Why not?" He opened the door and walked in. The shop was small but cozy. Old-fashioned wooden tables, shelves full of books, yellow lights hanging from the ceiling. There were maybe 10 people inside. Some were hunched over their computers, some were reading books. No one looked up until the doorbell rang and they heard, "You're still pronouncing Americano wrong." Trump's voice echoed through the shop. At first, no one could believe it, but then one of the baristas looked up. "Wait, that?" Trump walked in. He took off his coat and rubbed his hands together. "We need to warm up a little today, don't we?" The crowd locked eyes widened, quiet whispers spread. Trump headed for the cash register. "A black coffee for me. No sugar. Talking is sweet enough." Laughter erupted. A few people reached for their phones. Someone quietly recorded. But Trump noticed, and at that moment he turned to the entire crowd. "Listen to me," he said. Everyone in the shop fell silent. "It's chaotic outside today. Storm, traffic, plans are broken. But sometimes a coffee shop gives more than the biggest meeting, because there's not just coffee here, there are people here, and I'm here to be a person today." Dear viewers, if you've felt like your life has changed direction while reading these lines, subscribe. Because these stories start in those seemingly ordinary rainy moments, and they grab your heart where you least expect it. Trump sat down. One of the tables pulled a chair for him. A woman approached him. "Mr. Trump, if we knew you were coming here." Trump raised his hand. "If you knew, this place might not be so real." The barista brought the coffee. A small heart was drawn on the edge of the cup. Trump stared. "What's this?" The barista smiled. "We add intention to coffee. Today's intention, a thank you in silence." Trump fell silent. He took the cup and took the first sip. While the storm continued outside, people inside began to share their own stories for the first time. It was as if that coffee shop had become a place that brought out the sentences that everyone had been hiding. As the rain pounded on the windows outside, the sounds inside slowly blended together. The steam from the coffee machines, the rustle of papers, the sound of cups hitting plates, they were all like part of an orchestra. But that orchestra had now acquired a new soloist. After sipping his coffee, Trump placed a notebook on the table. He turned the pages. "As usual, I have blank pages in front of me," he said. "But today, perhaps for the first time in my life, I don't want to fill this page for myself." Someone approached from the next table, a man in his late 30s. He wore a jacket covered in rain stains, a notebook in his hand. "Mr. Trump," he said, "I am a teacher. I did not vote for you. In fact, I criticized many of your decisions. But today, here, I want to thank you, because the moment you stopped talking, you started listening." Trump looked into his eyes. He smiled. "Maybe for the first time in this country, I am grateful that someone has told me this honestly." There was a silence in the coffee shop. It was as if everyone was asking themselves, "Since when have I really listened?" At that moment, an old woman in the corner spoke up. "I come here every day. I sit at the same table. I drink the same coffee. But today, for the first time, my table felt full." Trump turned to him. "And at that table, there is your story now." The barista approached quietly and left another cup. Today, the coffees are free. Because our guest today didn't just buy coffee, he left something real here, an ear for silence. The crowd applauded softly. It was a quiet but heartfelt applause. Dear viewers, sometimes a coffee cup resonates more than a podium. If you are feeling these lines right now, write in the comments. Has there been a moment in your life that was changed by a coffee conversation? And please subscribe, because this channel tells stories that sometimes only grow when we are silent. The door opened. The rain outside was still continuing, but inside no one was looking at the rain anymore. Trump moved his chair back a little. Then he asked, "This shop is called Common Grounds. Why?" The barista replied, "Because we want people of different views to come together at the same table. Common ground. Sometimes it's just a table, a coffee cup." Trump nodded. Then he fell silent. Then he wrote a sentence in his notebook. Differences of opinion are for raising voices, but in a partnership of hearts, everyone speaks in the same tone. And he read that sentence out loud, slowly. The young couple in the corner locked eyes. They had just argued. But after that sentence, their hands found each other again. At that moment, despite the storm outside the door, everything inside seemed to stop. Trump took one last look at the table he was sitting at. Maybe I came here by chance, but I got more out of this table than most planned conversations. The storm was still not over. The raindrops hitting the windows continued incessantly, and the people inside were reluctant to leave. It was as if everyone was stuck in this small coffee shop, in a moment outside of time. Trump looked at his watch but then stared blankly at his wrist for a long time. He was not late for an appointment, because being here itself was the most appropriate meeting of the day. A young man sat down next to him. "Excuse me, Mr. Trump, I hadn't planned on talking at all, but it's not like this is just a shop anymore." Trump turned. "Tell me, what made this place so special?" The young man bowed his head. "When you stopped talking, everyone started telling their own stories. Maybe that's why." Trump took off his glasses. He took out his little notebook from the inside pocket of his jacket, and he wrote on the new page of the notebook, "Some places are not made of words. They are built of moments when people are silent but heard." At that moment, a phone rang from inside. The barista answered. "Common Grounds, good day? Yes. Trump? Yes, he's here right now." "No, it's not planned." Trump nodded. "Leave it. The one who hears what I'm going to say is already here." A loud thunderclap was heard outside, but inside only one thing was being discussed at that moment: the sentence Trump just wrote. An old woman named Joan approached Trump. "I heard the sentences in your notebook. I have a suggestion. Maybe you should write your own book." Trump smiled slightly. "Maybe, but this time I'm not going to write to convince anyone. I'm just going to write to relax." The woman nodded. "Then we'll be your first readers." Dear viewers, if you've ever found yourself in a place you least expected, in a coffee shop, in a storm, in a stranger's sentence, write that moment in the comments. Because this channel exists to remember together how big those small moments really are. And subscribe, because the next story could start on your street corner. Trump stood up. His cup was empty, but the warmth inside came not from the coffee, but from the people. He headed for the cash register. He turned to the barista. "I paid for today's coffees, but please write on the receipt. Today's payment? What is heard in the silence?" The barista nodded, his eyes filling with tears. Trump headed for the door. He didn't have an umbrella, but he didn't care. He turned and took one last look at the crowd before he stepped over the threshold. "We didn't talk here today. We agreed, and I wouldn't trade that agreement for any meeting." And then he wrote one last sentence in his notebook for all to see. "Sometimes you find the soul of a country not in the streets, but in a coffee cup." The rain was still pouring down when he walked out the door, but everyone who remained inside that shop was no longer afraid of the storm outside, because the silence had gone from them.